All right, welcome back. Today, we are going to tackle something super important in sustainability reporting, especially for anyone in the toys and sporting goods world. We're going to show you exactly how to report on labor conditions in your supply chain using a really key metric from the SASB standards.
So, first things first, a quick refresher. The SASB standards, which are now part of the IFRS Foundation, give companies a clear, industry-specific way to talk about sustainability in a way that investors understand. We're talking about things that are financially material, which is really just a fancy way of saying stuff that can actually hit your bottom line. We're going to zero in on one of these standards to show you how it works in practice.
And that really brings us to the big question, right? In today's world, with supply chains that stretch all across the globe, how do you actually prove that the people making your products are being treated fairly and are working in safe conditions? It's a massive challenge for sure, but the standard we're about to unpack gives you a really clear roadmap. Now, I want to be crystal clear about this. We're not just talking about ticking boxes for some corporate social responsibility report. No, having poor labor conditions in your supply chain, that creates some major, tangible risks for your business. Think about it like this. If you ignore these issues, you could be looking at serious supply disruptions from strikes or shutdowns. You could absolutely trash the brand reputation you've spent years building. And you could attract a whole lot of unwanted attention from regulators. Every single one of those things can directly and seriously impact your financials. Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks. The specific standard we're focusing on has a formal name, CGTS 430A.1. And yeah, that code sounds a little intimidating, but don't get hung up on the name. What really matters is what it represents, the exact piece of information that investors and other stakeholders are looking for.
At its core, it sounds super simple, right? All they want is one number, the total count of facilities that you've had audited. And this isn't just for the factories you own yourself. It also applies to your third-party vendors and partners. It's all about getting full visibility into your entire supply chain. But okay, what do we actually mean by an audit here? Well, the standard is pretty specific. It means on-site visits to the facility and a deep dive into their records. I mean, we're not talking about a quick phone call. This is the real deal, and it can be done by your own internal team or, as is pretty common, by a specialized third-party auditor.
And what's the yardstick they're measuring against? It's something called a social responsibility code of conduct. Think of this as your rulebook, the playbook for your suppliers. It's the policy that lays out all your requirements on everything from working conditions and labor practices to health and safety. The absolute minimum is that it ensures your suppliers are following the law. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting, because not all audits are created equal. You can't just do any old facility visit and call it a day. To actually count for this metric, your audit has to cover a very specific list of things. And this right here is basically your non-negotiable checklists. These are the absolute essentials your audit process has to look at. We're talking about the fundamentals, like making sure people are paid fairly and aren't working excessive hours. But it also covers some of the most critical human rights issues out there, things like underage labor, forced labor, and discrimination. You miss even one of these, and technically, that audit doesn't count. It's that black and white. Now, if you happen to be in the toy industry, listen up, because the standard gives you a really fantastic shortcut. It's a way to streamline this whole process and make sure you're compliant without having to reinvent the wheel. And this quote from the standard says it all. It explicitly states that if one of your facilities is part of the ICTI ethical toy program, it automatically counts for this metric. And why is that? It's because everyone agrees that the ICTI's own audit program is so thorough, it already covers all the bases we just talked about. This is a huge piece of guidance that can be a real game changer. So you've got your number, you've counted up your audited facilities. Job done, right? Well, not so fast. That number is really just the starting line. The real work begins when you start to ask, okay, but what did those audits actually find? This is what leads us right into the next metric, which is all about what you found in those audits, the non-conformances. The issues uncovered are usually broken down into two types. You've got priority non-conformances. These are the big ones, the zero tolerance things like, finding child labor or an immediate safety hazard, total deal breakers. Then you have other non-conformances. Still serious, don't get me wrong, but maybe it's something like missing paperwork for safety training. It's all about analyzing the results to understand the true health of your supply chain. And that's really what I want to leave you with. Reporting that number of audits, that's step one. But the real meaningful work is in what comes next. What are the patterns you're seeing? How are you actively fixing the problems you uncover? You see, getting that audit count is just the headline. The real story, the one that truly shows your commitment, is what you do with what you find inside those audits.